Pistons fans, David Mayo from MLive here this week to look at power forwards as the Pistons progress in their preparations toward the June 23rd NBA draft. Last week we looked at small forwards, and of the four players we profiled last week on MLive.com at MLive.com/Pistons, none of those four is a likely first-round pick. The Pistons simply don't need a small forward in the first round on a guaranteed contract. Power forward, completely different story. The need is going to meet fit, is going to meet draft position, is going to meet player availability, most likely when the Pistons pick at number 18. We profiled three guys this week: Henry Ellenson of Marquette, Deontay Davis of Michigan State, and Domantas Sabonis of Gonzaga. And we legitimately could have profiled 3 to 5 more power forwards, depending on how you classify a player, who could be available to the Pistons at number 18 in the first round. 3 of the top 4 or 5 picks in the draft will be power forwards. Possibly 10 to 12 power forwards will be among the 30 players picked in the first round. So the Pistons' need at the position and the availability at the position kind of meet a crossroads here. If they keep number 18, it's more palatable, in my opinion, to take a power forward on a guaranteed contract in the first round than it is to try and force fit a point guard if the ideal one doesn't come along. The idea is that if the Pistons do keep number 18, the 2 positions most likely where they draft would be point guard or power forward. If you try and get if you like Wade Baldwin, the Vanderbilt point guard, and you like his length and you think he's the right guy, fine, draft that point guard. If you like Tyler Ulis, the Kentucky point guard, and you can overlook the fact that he's 149 pounds, then fine, draft that point guard. But don't draft a point guard to force fit it when there's going to be a broader pool of power forwards and a need in this year's draft. Point guard's a really picky position. I think coaches and in general, and Stan Van Gundy especially, maybe more so than most, is really picky about his point guard, and I think all coaches really are. They have to be the extension of the coach. They have to be the coach on the floor. And if you're picking from only a couple guys, 3 guys, that's a pretty tough spot to be in. Plus, even if you draft a first-round point guard, and I'm talking specifically about the first round now, he's probably only your 3rd guy, and you're still going to need a point guard in free agency. That's also going to be true at power forward, except if you pick the right power forward in the draft, you might have your 2nd. You might be able to pick up a less expensive option as your 3rd in free agency and address some of your other needs, like a big expenditure at backup point guard, maybe replacing Joel Anthony at the 3rd center, maybe looking for a little wing help. It gives you a little more flexibility to play with other positions in trade if you get the right guy at the number 18 spot at power forward. It gives you a little more flexibility also going into the summer markets if you have a multi-positional guy maybe. Several of these guys fit the bill. Certainly Ellenson, Sabonis, and Deontay Davis, the 3 guys we looked at, fit the kind of the forward center potential mold where they could be centers in small lineups. So does Bryce Johnson. So does Peter Corneli. Juan Hernan Gomez, the Spanish guy who's kind of been teasing NBA scouts about coming out for the last couple of years, is certainly a combo forward who can play some down some to the 3 spot. So some of these guys are multidimensional and have different uses that the Pistons could find different ways to fit into their roster. Of course, the reason this is so important is because right now the only power forward under contract next year for the Pistons is Tobias Harris, a maximum contract guy under the old salary cap, and yet a guy who gives you a lot of a multi-dimensional guy, can put the ball on the floor, gives you some perimeter scoring, attacks the basket, good with both hands, good on the boards for his size. And yet you could use some complementary pieces when he's not on the floor, a range shooting power forward, a guy who can do some damage down low. It would help the Pistons to have different ways to play, different options at that position. So the first round of the draft could be very important to them vis-a-vis the power forward position. Last year, they needed a small forward in a small forward-rich draft. at number 8 overall and ended up with Stanley Johnson. This year, number 18, a little bit different dynamic drafting in that spot, and yet need and availability and draft position may come to their advantage again as the Pistons look at the possibility of taking a power forward in the first round on June 23rd. We'll be back next week in our last week of glances position by position at potential 2016 draft picks when we look at centers.